Hey guys, what's up? This is Alex, and I've been promising this for a long time. So yeah, I've come here to discuss some parallels I discovered between Eureka 7 and Buddhism. Parallels in the plot to the story of Siddhartha, the guy who would become famous for becoming the Buddha. Oh yeah, well, first of all, heads up, I am not qualified at all to talk about Buddhism in the least. Everything I've learned is just through, research I've done on the internet and my uncle. But, so yeah, if I get anything wrong, just let me know. I'm fully willing to admit that I'm very, very capable of being wrong. So I figured I'd start by talking about the story of Siddhartha first, just to kind of give you guys a basis for, just kind of a reference for, the parallels that I'm going to draw. So, Siddhartha was a prince of, India, I believe, and shortly after his birth, his mother passed away, and he was raised by his aunt, his mother's sister specifically, I believe. I've read like 4 different stories, so I'm really, really sorry if some of the stories are messed up or wrong. I'm gonna try to avoid referencing any of the stuff I might have learned from the movie where Keanu Reeves played Siddhartha, because any movie that's willing to let a white guy play an Indian man is probably not worth trusting as a viable source of information. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, so he was probably raised by his aunt. But throughout his childhood, his father never exposed him to the cruelties of the real world. He was kept, completely away from all that sort of stuff. He had no concept of suffering or sadness. Anyway, one day, when he was older, sometime in his late teenage years, he journeyed out into the city, and some say that he snuck out, some that, 2 of them say that he convinced his father to let him out. But, that's not really important. The point is that he left his sanctuary. And on his travels, he met an old man, a sick man, and a dead man. And he had never seen any of these things before. These were completely new experiences to him. And he learned that these stages of life are inescapable. Shortly thereafter, his wife gave birth to a child, and he was horrified by the prospect of knowing that his child and his wife would one day grow old and die. So, frustrated by this concept of death, basically, he decided to cast off his possessions and leave to, try to figure out some sort of way to avoid the sufferings in life. I could probably phrase that better, but after meditating on this for a long time, he realized that it was attachment to worldly things, be they tangible or not, ideas, cause suffering. So just kind of like, wanting things causes people to suffer. So, kind of, he practiced this, belief for several years. And he was in a miserable state. So, he collapsed from exhaustion and fell into a river. And he floated downstream a bit, and he unconsciously tried to save himself. It was at that moment when he had an epiphany as to why he hadn't, stopped suffering. He realized that, despite everything, unconsciously, he still desired to live. Realizing that this, desire to live was basically inescapable, he realized he had to try something new. With this new, having had this epiphany, he decided to search for kind of a middle road to the answer. He fed himself, or I think he was nursed back to health by somebody, I can't remember who at the moment. Being healthier than he'd been in like a long time, he finally set out to once again meditate. Healthier than he'd been in a long time, he finally set out, this time with like the intention of finally, figuring this whole suffering thing out. Cure for suffering, anyway. Well, he knew what caused suffering, but he needed to know what cured it. He sat underneath a Bodhi tree. Maybe it's a Bodhi tree, I don't know. And he decided that he would not move from that spot until he found the answer he was looking for. After several days, maybe it was weeks, I think it was weeks, he finally came to his answer. Observing the area around him, he he came up with this idea of cause and effect. And his answer was that basically all things, come to an end. All things are connected, and once you kind of realize that, you realize that your own suffering is, I want to say, inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. You realize that all negative feelings basically come to pass. Shit happens. It's kind of how you can abbreviate that. So when, shit does happen, you don't make a fuss about it. You just realize that you are but a speck in the universe. That's the best way I can describe it. Oh, and with this, he had become the Buddha. He had become enlightened. I'm glossing over a lot, like during his process of enlightenment, there was also like a thing with the demon Mara, but that's not important at the moment, so I'm just, skipping that. So, with that out of the way, we are now back to the Eureka 7. And actually, I think this might be blasphemy, but I think I'm just gonna call the show Eureka 7 from here on out. Just Eureka is not that hard to say, I guess, but it's, I don't know, every time I say it, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. So, I'm just gonna call it Eureka 7 and move on. So we're back at the show. How does the show tie into all of this? In a way, Renton's connections, there's some light connections in his kind of backstory. We know that his father was frequently known as King Adrock. Or after he became famous, he was posthumously. Just like Siddhartha's father, his grandfather didn't want him going out into the world either. He wanted him to stay and not... He didn't want him to experience the same, sufferings that he did, as he mentions at the end of episode 3. And in that way, so Bell Forest is kind of like this sanctuary. It's Bell Forest, Bell meaning, beautiful. It's pretty much peaceful there. And, okay, and this is what I really wanted to talk about. Those other things are just kind of, they're not that important. They're just kind of light connections, as I said. But, just like Siddhartha, Renton meets on his travels outside the, his home, he meets several people. He meets basically he meets the old man, the sick man, and the corpse, but they're presented kind of differently, and they have different meanings as well. In Siddhartha's case, they were just kind of, they were what they were. They were just kind of stages of human life. They were just kind of misery incarnate, I guess. Or not necessarily miserable, but I should just stop. But in Eureka 7, a show that's more about, they're more like representations, or the scenarios that they're in are kind of like representations of negative aspects of human nature. Okay, so first, the old man analog. This one was actually kind of difficult because Renton meets kind of a lot of old men. And in fact, maybe they're kind of all supposed to be... Maybe they're all supposed to be that kind of old man analog, but... just for now, I'm gonna stick with just, one, and that's Brittany the Miner. Because he got his own episode, which was, I want to say 17. And so in Brittany's case, he's got this, like, despair thing kind of going on. He's given up on his, quest. It's to, like, old age is just, worn him out. It's, this idea of giving up and harming people that you've come to like, or not even that, just harming other people, or threatening other people for personal gain. I'm still kind of working on these, boiling down the actual, good explanation for each of these, but when it comes to literary analysis, I'm a noob, so forgive me. The next is the analog for the sick child, or, well, the sick man, or person. once again, in Eureka 7, Renton does meet, he meets a sick child, a sick Vodarak child. And in this case, it's racism and fear of, like, humans not understanding. It's racism and fear that Renton encounters. The child is, what was I talking about? Racism. Renton encounters racism and, this, fear of what, people don't understand. They're, the way that people, treat the child or treat Renton is really uncool. Is the stupidest way I can think of to put that. Right, so that's kind of that. The last parallel, of course, is the corpse, and this one in Eureka 7 was actually a very big deal. And it's the way it occurs in Eureka 7 is, vastly different than the way that it, happened in Siddhartha's tale. And Siddhartha, he just, I believe he came across a funeral? I'm thinking of the Keanu Reeves version right now, so that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. Point is that Siddhartha stumbled across a dead body. Renton didn't stumble across one. He created a dead body in one of the most, like just the most beautiful, brutal scenes in the whole series, which is in episode 20, when Renton basically loses his mind and just utterly obliterates a guy. And when he was finished, he saw the exposed corpse of the man that he killed. And it came to, which was a turning point, because up until then, of course, Renton hadn't really been aware that he'd been killing people. He said it didn't feel real. Anyway, this was, another negative aspect of human nature, rage, which he, experienced himself in this case. I'll go more in depth to these things at a later period. For now, I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on them and just kind of get my thoughts across. So that's that part of the this short little talk lecture thing. Next, I've been promising that I'd answer a question that somebody had, Yushi's question, for like 2 weeks now. Oh god, I didn't create notes for this. Okay. Can I wing it?